What? Oh, welcome to chess, ladies and gentlemen. Didn't know you were there. Snuck up on me. Anyway, I figure I'll go ahead and cover one of the games from the candidates tournament. As you guys know, the World Championship is being played later in the year, and they started the candidates tournament last year. But because of everything that's going on in the world, they went ahead and paused it, so they resumed it yesterday. So this is the second round from them resuming it yesterday. So we have Anish Giri versus Wang Hao. And so, a lot of people are noting, Anish Giri is doing really well this year. So is Fabiano Caruana. They're both pretty strong contenders, candidates for, taking that spot against Magnus Carlsen later in the year. So I figure I'll go ahead and cover one of those games and just screen down a touch. But yeah, I'll go ahead and do this game here. But anybody that's coming from the Philippines, Magandang umaga, aking maga, kaibagan, kamusta to you. Anybody that speaks Cebuano, so I'm gonna say maayon buntog to you. Hagala, kamusta to you guys as well. Anybody that's coming and watching from the Netherlands who does speak Dutch, hello. Thank you for coming by and taking a look at my stuff here. Anybody who's coming from China, ni hao. And Shishini. Appreciate you guys very much for stopping by and taking a look at my stuff. But if you guys are ready, let's go ahead and take a look, see what we have for this game. All right, so we got D4, knight to F6. So it starts off as an Indian, but these games usually quickly transpose just because of the way that they're played. We have C4, E6. We have knight to F3. Now we have some different options here. We can go Slav type stuff. We can go Queen's Gambit declined. It starts off as a Queen's Gambit. It can be the Queen's Gambit accepted. We also have some Bogo Indian type stuff. I personally play D4 myself, so I see this opening very often. So we see D5 and then we see G3. So we have the Catalan, and we can still see bishop to G4s. Most common move is going to be bishop to E7 and just simply just getting castled and stuff like that. Slightly better for white. It's a pretty strong opening as white. Anybody who's faced it as black knows it's pretty strong. So we see bishop to E7, bishop G2, castles and castles. And these are positions that I'm really familiar with because I played them myself. So we see pawn takes C4, and we see queen to C2 in the game. Now also, that is going to be the top and most commonly played move. The move that I personally like, and it's played a lot less, is actually going to be knight to E5. Knight to E5 is just going to give, it's basically just saying that you just intend to take back the pawn immediately. And you're also discovering the bishop on this long diagonal, which is kind of the point behind hypermodern in the Catalan type situations. Both of them are very legitimate. They're roughly the same, strength wise. You can choose from either one of them. And after something like C5, which is probably going to be the most, the strongest reply for black, you'll see knight to A3, queen taking D4, the knight A taking C4, queen takes, rook takes here, knight B to D7, knight takes D7, and after knight takes D7, you see bishop to F4. And you are down a pawn. You're going to be recovering it, but you are making it very, very difficult for black to unravel their pieces. So usually when you're down a pawn, and you've actually gambited a pawn, you're getting a lot of activity, in return. So the bishop most likely is going to be coming here, and you're going to be getting your stuff back here. So you're in good shape. But we did see queen to C2. We see A6. We see A4. You have to prevent B5 from coming. Because right now B5 is not favorable, because if you did push it, you'd be taken here, and then of course you can't take back because the rook is dropping. So it becomes kind of hard sometimes for black to try to hold on to this pawn. A C6 situation sometimes will come, with kind of like Slav intentions and stuff. It does give you a little bit of some options and stuff there. But like I said, after we see queen to C2, we see A4 or A6, A4. We see bishop to D7. So black is trying to do kind of like a Rubinstein Fort Knox type situation with bringing the bishop to C6. That is one way to combat the bishop, on this long diagonal. So we see queen takes C4, bishop to C6, bishop to F4. We got bishop to D6. We have knight to C3. It actually is interesting as it looks after bishop takes F4. Pawn takes f4 and a5. It does kind of look like white isn't doing that great because, you know, their king side is very open. But it is actually pretty strong for white. You're actually in a pretty good position here as white. So we see e3, just reinforcing this structure that we have here in the center. So as you can see, I mean, white has like some good, you know, control. They don't really too much have to worry about the queen kind of coming on this diagonal because you do have these squares protected by the knight and this square protected by the pawn. So you know you're looking pretty good as far as the penetration by black. So we see knight to a6. We have knight to e5. Discovers, you know, the bishop on g2. So bishop takes g2, king takes g2, and we have c6. And this is the novelty of the game. Before, I think one time we've seen knight to b4 in this position, which is generally when you play a5 in like type of Catalan or Queen's Gambit type situations, or maybe some Slavs, you are trying to put this knight on b4 because it does control and attack some pretty key squares. Just activates the knight pretty good. So like I said, we do see c6, and then we see h3. You know, we are looking to you know, just restrict you know, white's movement or black's movement of their knight as much as possible, because we're thinking about maybe moving this knight at some point. So h3 perfectly makes sure that we hold on to this g4 square. We see queen to b6 and we see queen to e2. We have c5, rook f comes to d1. We have pawn takes d4, rook takes d4, and then we have a rook a to d8. And before this move here, let me see here. After this push, this move was suggested. It was one of the moves, but it didn't quite all the way work. But after we have rook f to d1, we have all the trades, and then the rook a coming to d8. Now we have an opportunity to play queen to b5. Because the idea behind it is you don't want to trade here, because like if you do trade, you're going to see trades and trades, and then now you're knocking this knight. So you're gaining a tempo, and then so you know, you're discovering an attack on this pawn. So that is favorable for white. And if you did have the queen trying to retreat to hold on to the pawn, you had a rook to c4. And this just kind of messes up your flow because now you can't maintain this diagonal. So you're going to be forced to leave it, probably something like this, and then you're dropping a pawn. So that was actually a really strong try in that position. But we did see rook takes d8. And then after queen takes d8, we see rook to d1. Just, you know, gaining control of this file here. It's always important when you have rooks to try to put them on open files because, you know, they're just going to activate them as much as possible. And rooks will love to be on that because it just maximizes their ability. So you see white grabbing at that file against black. So we see queen to a8. It's a little bit of a passive queen move, you know, because it just, I mean, there's not a lot that the queen is doing in the corner. And it's very easy to protect against this possible discovery that's coming. Even the discovery itself is not too horrible, because you're just, I mean, there's not really a good way, you know, way to push this pawn to really cause like a lot of havoc. So we see king down to g1. We see knight to b4. The queen comes to b5. We see knight b to d5. Knight takes d5. Knight takes d5, and we see rook to c1. So since the knight has kind of plugged itself in that file, we're switching focus to the next file. So after h6, we see queen to d7. You know, of course, we're threatening some type of rook to c7s, trying to pick up this pawn and trying to pick up, you know, this pawn on f7. So the knight comes to f6, knocks the queen back to d6. We see g6, but unfortunately, black is actually kind of wasting a little bit of time with their pawn moves. G6 and h6 didn't really do a lot to try to further black's position. You know, you're trying to, you know, possibly rook to d8 was good. Just trying to kind of knock this queen somewhere. You know, there is not a dark square bishop, so you do kind of have some dark square weaknesses now around your king. So we see b3, h5 comes, king to h2, king to g7, and we see queen to d4. And as you guys know, this queen is now on this diagonal, and the king is also on that diagonal. So you do have some possibilities of some discoveries if the knight ever tries to move. So we see rook to d8, queen coming to b2, just maintaining that, you know, maintaining that that discovery possibility on the diagonal. So the queen comes to b8, and we see b4. And this is a really nice move because it's looking to try to open up the queen more and the rook more in conjunction to try to get this king. So we see pawn takes b4, and we have a rook to c4. You know, maintaining the queen on this diagonal. So that's very important in the way that Giri is moving. He's trying to make sure that he always has the discovery possibility to immobilize black. So we see b3, rook comes to b4. We have queen to a7. Now, it's important to note that in this position, you know, when we're seeing the pawn push to b3, and after rook to b4, we're seeing queen to a7. Wang Hao is very, very low on time. He is very, very low on time. So he's starting to make some inaccuracies. I mean, just like most people do, you know, when you're running out of time, you start making like, you know, really kind of horrible moves. At least I do. I'm not sure if you guys out there make horrible moves when you're in time pressure, but I know I do. So I can relate to when you're kind of making inaccuracies because you're just not able to really calculate as good. So we see rook takes b3, queen takes e4, and then we now finally get the rook onto b7 after rook takes b7. So we have this nice pick on the 7th. So that's starting to force black to make some defensive moves. And the first move in that is queen to e8. Now, we got to the point in the game where if you guys want to go ahead and stop the video and see what's a strong move here for white, go ahead and do so. Okay, cool. So what was actually played in the game is rook to a7. And as far as rook moves go, rook to c7 is going to be best. Because you have black kind of in a zugzwang. There's not really a lot that black can really do. And then queen to b7 is going to be coming. And what you've done is you've put your queen behind the rook. So you've made it a lot safer for captures on like the f7 square. But the move that I'm looking for after queen to e8 is actually e4. E4 is really good because it prevents so one of the problems that you had earlier in the game was a knight coming to d5. If you can ever unpin your king, put your king up here or something like that, somewhere over here, you know, you're going to have to worry about this knight actually trying to come and you know, outpost itself on the, you know, on the d5 square. So, you know, of course, we're not going to see this because you're just going to see knight takes f7 with check. King is going to have to go somewhere. Then you're going to see that. And you're threatening checkmate here, so that's not good. So we're not going to see that take. So it just really restricts further black's movement. You know, and that's pretty much what black is in. Black is in, you know, more or less zugzwang. They're not really able to make any legitimate moves, and they're just completely just constricted in a defensive position. But like I said, we did see rook to a7. We saw knight to d5, queen coming to b7. And you guys will notice that the queen is actually kind of really trapped here. There's not a lot that the queen can do. So we see knight to e4, feeling like it's safe to move, but then we do see knight takes f7. And it is in this position that Wang Hao actually resigns the game because, you know, there's just not anything to really do. This knight is going to come away with the discovery. There really is no good like place to put the king. You know, there's only these couple of moves here, you know, even coming down here, but, you know, that's... there's just nothing to be done in this position. So this was a really nice positional game by Anish Giri, you know, handling that. And you know, we might see Magnus Carlsen versus Anish Giri. That might be a thing. But for all you guys that came by and checked out my video, I appreciate it very much. Shishni, Maraming Salamat, and thank you for coming by and taking a look at my stuff. And I will see you guys next time.